How's it going, guys? My name is Graham. This is HorrorVale Act 1, which serves as the free demo for the upcoming full game. I put out a quick poll on YouTube basically asking people, do you want to see a secrets, Easter eggs, and references video on this game similar to what I did for Deltarune? And pretty unsurprisingly, it was a big resounding yes, of course, definitely do that. Well, there's strong differences between the two of them. They're both RPGs set in fun, wild, big, expansive worlds, populated end to end with crazy wacky characters and then pumped full of references. So yeah, people who enjoyed Undertale, Deltarune, they're gonna like this game as well. I would say there isn't a ton in terms of secrets to be found, but there are an insane amount of references packed in every little corner of this game, so I'll cover as much as I can. So the game is taking place in this underground world in the town of HorrorVale. Alice is our protagonist. That's as much setup as I'm going to give. If you're curious about more specifics or whatever, I have a full playthrough of Act 1 here on the channel. There's links to that in the description. You guys can go check that out instead if you so choose. The poster directly above Alice's desk here has Mandible Skullson. It's her favorite musician. His smash hit about being in a human movie is incredibly iconic. The picture, the name, the description here is all a reference to Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's all about being trapped in a horror movie, a monster movie. They like to flip things on their head a lot in this game. Monsters become humans, humans become monsters. They do it a lot. It's a very recurring theme here. Similarly, on the wall we have a Ghostbusters poster, a John Carpenter's Halloween poster. We also have the gold Starman Super on a poster here from Earthbound. This appears to be some sort of boy band, probably like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or something. I don't know the precise poster that it's in reference to, but you could assume. In the corner here we have Mr. Fuzzles. Not immediately important, it comes up again later. In this world they use the online chatting system of TOL instead of AOL, which would normally stand for America Online. It isn't stated anywhere in game. I actually asked Dustin about this one. TOL canonically stands for Tartarus Online. You open the link and, of course, it's a trick. It's that dumb song by Trick Ghastly again. Here you get Trick Trolled instead of Rick Rolled. The game occasionally has references to it being a game and there being game manuals within the game. There's pretty funny stuff if you do read these small little tutorials. Let's quickly go through them. Not like you care. Who reads manuals anymore? I see that tab with a walkthrough pulled up. You disgust me. These three ghosts who look like they were plucked out of a different era with their cigars, their billiards playing, their sideways little paperboy caps, hanging out in a club atmosphere. We have Louie, Anthony, and Frankie. Well, not necessarily. I think that it's probably referencing Louis Armstrong, Frank Sinatra, and Tony Bennett. I think that's pretty believable. The day Scruffy came home, he stole your dad's humorous. Dad didn't see the funny side. Just a clever play on words. I'm always a fan of those. No, these pictures won't talk to you. Just kind of a nod to Harry Potter. Puzzles 101. Written by some weird guy named after a type of paper. I didn't get this right away because I always think of papyrus as a font first. Papyrus is a material similar to thick paper that was used in ancient times as a writing surface. Took us about 2 minutes into the game to get an Undertale reference, but I like that they kind of had a step removed there, that it wasn't totally on the nose. The Ringmaster, an old tale about a bizarre puppet who kidnaps people and steals their memories. This being a reference to Poe, who introduces us to the game at the beginning cutscene. Kind of self-referential, but I think it's still important. Throughout the game, you'll find different red enemies. Once you're in battle, the UI around them turns red and it means they can't be defeated by normal means. The stubborn ghost that we find down below is the first of these. I specifically bring up the stubborn ghost because that comes up again later. Within the lab, we encounter this little goon. He's no ordinary stubborn ghost. Your feeble salt will do nothing to me. He is instead the super stubborn ghost. This is something that I find kind of similar to the chilling adventures of Sabrina. Instead of saying things like, by God, or for heaven's sake, you'll say, by death, or for hell's sake. Another example is this person throwing out, I swear to death. Just kind of another funny example of the switcheroo humor that they kind of use in this game. A few pretty on-the-nose references here. We have Game of Bones from George R.R. Marrow, Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin. A key difference here being that all the characters that are killed off do come back already being undead. Bonio and Gouliet by William Spookspear. A little bit self-aware here. These spooky puns are downright horrible. Horrible? Forget it. Harry Rodder by J.K. Rowling, a book about witches and wizards. No spooky spin, it's what you'd expect. There's kind of a recurring joke in the game that you can keep checking these trash cans. It's empty. Being undead, you and others around you can die repeatedly. Here you can find your own grave at age 10. You can also find yourself again here, back when you were only 2. Similarly, Scruffy, your pet undog, at age 3. Here's Alice again, age 17. There's a ghost that hangs out just beyond your little hedge maze. I thought I saw someone here playing a flute earlier. Maybe the sound of the generators up north scared them off. To advance the plot anyways, you do have to go shut down all 5 generators. So once you do that, make sure you come back to this tree. Now before carrying on forward, once all the generators have been turned off, if we come back to here, we now have this dancing flute playing character in the clearing. Henry, hello there. Who might you be? Who might I be? Let's see. Do you fancy yourself one of quick wit? Could that be true? I believe so, perhaps yes. I'd like to play you a song. The soil is tilled, the seeds are sown, the ground where meals are made. Of all the plants that here are grown, which do I serenade? If you choose incorrectly, for example, potato, you potato, I potato. Or carrot, carrot, Actually what is happening here is he is playing us a series of notes on the scale. C-A-B-B-A-G-E. I'm not much of a musician myself, but that's what's going on there. Well done, my dear. Soon you too will be able to see what lies on the moon. And with that, he disappears. Likely a secret that will be further expanded upon in the full game. Now I just need to not get lost on my way out of here. I have been unable to find a way up onto that roof. If anyone has figured it out, you're gonna have to let me know, but for now, it seems to just be a little secret that we will never learn the truth of. We kind of get a funny in-story excuse for killing people left and right. We can't starve, be poisoned, or die of old age, but if our body takes so much damage, it will fall apart and turn to ash. Apparently you just wake up in the last place you slept. But bodies that don't turn to ash simply have to be buried, so that's why there's graves for skeletons and zombies around this world. Skeleton Manor, home of Dr. Redacted. A little bit of secrecy there. We're not quite sure who Alice's dad is. That is actually slightly outdated information. As of one of the later updates, it has now been replaced with Home of Dr. Nettle, which is actually Alice's father. We have a name for it. Even though we don't meet the character, we haven't seen them yet, we now have a name. There are some funny ideas here, just the metagaming of the fact that someone blocked off the path with a bunch of boxes and gravestones. It wasn't here yesternight. Everyone's awake and doing things all through the nights. In fact, I don't think this world even has days. There's this creepy guy sitting on the other side of the wall here. Still nothing down here. Come back in the full game. I think that's the only way we would be able to get over to that, the creepy dark figure leaning up against the wall. No access at this time. Abraham Stoker, who went by Bram Stoker, wrote Dracula back in 1897, introduced the world to the character of Count Dracula, as well as many of the modern conventions we associate with vampires. Even the character Van Helsing comes from this book, which, funny little Easter egg there, is Abraham Van Helsing, named after the author. I literally just finished reading this book, so I'm kind of, I don't know, gushing about it a little bit. It's a classic for a reason. It's a damn good book. The direct quote from that is, "Listen to them, the children of the night, what music they make." So here instead we have our own little vampire friend doing a slight twist on it, named Bram. What kind of music? Smooth jazz? I'm going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation here, but there's something known as a jiangshu, which is a Chinese hopping zombie. The character who actually runs the shop in this world is young. Everything from the hat to the robe to the piece of parchment attached to its face with the inscription is all kind of the pop culture interpretation of this particular type of monster. I've seen them referred to as Chinese hopping vampires and Chinese hopping zombies, so I'm not sure which one is more common. Maybe something is just lost in translation there and gets a little bit confused. This character looks a little bit more vampire-like with the big fangs. Now, normally the inscriptions on the parchment have more to do with like a spell or marking them as a zombie or undead or something like that. Here we kind of have a little bit of like a cartoonified, symbolized version of a pumpkin, a wrapped up hard candy, and a bedsheet ghost. And funnily enough, the character's last name is Shu, so altogether you're getting that full young Shu. I gotta stop saying it. The more times I'm saying it, the more likely I am to be wrong. They're very courteous, they're kind, they'll greet you. You can find them again later in the game, and the dialogue will actually change slightly if you didn't go into their candy shop in HorrorVale to begin with. Now, before being known as BatWorks Software, they were Alarcus Games, named thus after Dustin's Alarcus comics. Alarcus was kind of a mascot character that existed within the comics that was then used to name the comics and name the game company, but eventually BatWorks Software. Two of these on the wall actually came from a game that was originally going to be developed for HorrorVale that never ended up happening, and the third character on the wall is kind of a stand-in for Dustin the developer. The shopkeeper was originally going to be Alarcus, and the joke was kind of that there was like the only human character in this world. It was eventually scrapped, and we have the new shopkeeper now instead. Lydia talks about the layout of the town. HorrorVale is surrounded by massive walls on all sides with 4 gates in each cardinal direction. I feel like I've heard of another town like that somewhere before. And while it does generically apply to a lot of RPGs, it has been stated that Lydia is specifically referring to Clocktown in Majora's Mask. I absolutely love the brilliant idea of kind of combining the tall hat of the Queen's Guard with the tall hair of Frankenstein's bride. That's just... Give whoever came up with that an award of some kind. Anything. Give them something. Maybe buy the game. That'll do. One of the creepies beat me up. I ran out of HP, so I died. Woke up all the way back home. How annoying. The idea of reviving and waking up at home makes so much more sense in a game about undead characters. We can talk to Anthony here just north of town, and he'll give us another excerpt of the manual. More manual sarcasm. Let's get this over with, since the smug anime boy isn't going to, I guess. No one adjusts their glasses that much. When you're talking to him, he's just perpetually pushing up his glasses. When searching for Scruffy out east, we come across Skippy, one of the creepies that is roaming around town causing trouble. This character is a reference to SCP-173 from the SCP Foundation, seen in the game SCP Containment Breach. In that game, it is known as the Sculpture. They played around with the design in some pretty funny ways here, like making the upper green part look more like eyebrows rather than a second set of eyes. What is normally a bloody gash in the middle of the face now looks a little bit more like a nose, and they gave him some tidy whities instead of being naked. Pretty much all monsters, potentially 100% of them that I'm aware of, will have a little bit of a bouncing sprite animation while they're idling in battle like this. This character stays entirely stationary. Directly reflects this character not moving in their own game whenever the player is directly facing them. So that's why this guy just hangs out, stands still. Matt actually designed Skippy to have a diaper because SCP-173, quote, has a poopy butt. I think that little piece of music might be a reference to the X-Files. At one point you can actually hear dial-up sound effects in the middle of this song. The game's composer Matthew Rock does a ton of cool little things like that. Interestingly, he also designed Skippy for this game. Unfortunately, my musical ear probably isn't strong enough to catch all of the little references he slips in, but that was one small one. It worries me how many people probably have not experienced the horrors of dial-up internet. It's very fitting to have in a horror-themed game. There's this mopey little ghost that reminds me of like Charlie Brown or Linus or something hanging out in the Great Pumpkin Patch. You cannot get in here, and it drives me absolutely crazy. The devs even made a tweet saying that every single Let's Player they've seen wigs out about their inability to access this. Either it's coming later in the game, it's never coming, it's probably just there to be annoying, and it keeps me up at night. A selection of delightful plants, some mean, some green, some downright extraterrestrial. A reference to the Little Shop of Horrors. Towards the west side of town, we have Barb. She uses Castlevania's "What a Horrible Night to Have a Curse" line. Now, that is the very obvious reference that we have at hand here. If I check all the characters, there's no status effects on them. But when you first talk to Barb and check your characters again, it actually does apply a status effect. This is a pretty obscure reference to something that Dustin experienced in one of the old Mother games. There's a character that poisons you, and it's complicated and requires a bunch of backtracking to undo, and there's nothing warning you that anything bad there is going to happen. So there's a weird layered reference happening here for Castlevania and the Mother series. Jekyll asks for help finding his game dude horror. I searched my brain for a better horror version of Game Boy Color, and I couldn't come up with one either. People at the school play Skull Ball. I genuinely hope at some point in the game there's a Skull Ball minigame. Many of Jekyll's items are connected to old retro gaming paraphernalia. We have the Ultra Glove, which is the Power Glove, the Hess Zapper, which is the Nest Zapper. At the abandoned shack, we have Sophie. They start to kind of flap their arms around. Yes? At which point they simply fly away. This is in reference to the viral video from Matt Geiler, a news anchor at the time who just threw on a leotard and a pumpkin mask around Halloween 2006 and did a crazy dance to the Ghostbusters theme just as a way to fill in a block in their schedule. I love how silly the reason is for this video to exist, but I love the video even more. Despite not actually appearing in Act 1, there will eventually be a full party member, Jackie, who much more directly is this. Here lies my hopes and dreams. That's a reference to me, because I've completely given up. But really, though, this is possibly a reference to Squidward's gravestone. This was neither confirmed nor denied, but seems quite likely. Mark the Murderer, a reference to Jeff the Killer. Plain white face, dark hair, a giant wide grin. Just a weird character that came from creepypasta and became internet famous. He actually dies with the tiniest bit of an internet-like sound effect, like old dial-up internet, and that might be a reference to the fact that he spawned from internet culture. Maybe I'm stretching there, maybe I'm hearing things, but it would be a funny little joke. Not enough sound effect jokes in games. The Frankenstein Postal Service worker is named Shelby, a likely reference to Mary Shelley, who wrote the original Frankenstein. She delivers us another page of the manual, again with little snarky lines hidden partway through. What's that? You didn't need my help? You want a medal? Think you've played enough RPGs that you don't need any instructions? If I didn't give you any, you'd complain that the game doesn't tell you anything. Go in the corner and think about what you said. It's also page 23, which I just, ever since seeing the movie 23, like to keep an eye out for. It's hard to say how intentional that might be. This character walking around is obviously a reference to The Scream, the very famous painting, but I don't really know what the name Jonathan has to do with anything. Here lies Jeff. I warned him about stairs. I told him. This is a reference to a weird MS Paint webcomic, Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff. This singular panel of the comic is all I've ever seen. I would have never even understood that there was a reference here at all if someone in the comments of my playthrough hadn't pointed it out, so thank you for that. We have Patrick hanging out near these gravestones. Now is a good opportunity to talk about the Make Your Monster art contest. The developers of HorrorVale ran a series of art contests where fans were able to submit designs for monsters, enemies, party members, all sorts of things. They then picked their favorites and ran a poll for them. Patrick was one of these winners, designed by Jay Nightmare. I'll point out other fan-designed characters as they come up. Riley is known as the helpful citizen around town who rakes up all the piles of leaves. Here lies Riley, crushed to death by leaves. Like, a lot of them. This is Riley, the character who is just in love with raking up leaves and is constantly making all of the piles that we see. For her sake, please don't jump in and spoil the piles. Here lies Frank, defeated in battle by a little girl. I have no recollection of the event in question. Here lies Retromon, found dead in the Forgotten Manor. This is a YouTuber who previously covered HorrorVale. Driftwood Gaming drifted into an endless chasm. Another YouTuber. Hard reset. I imagine you guys are seeing a pattern at this point. Tanner of the North. Again, just lots of YouTubers who covered this game really early on. I'm not sure exactly what happened to Cherichido. They were another YouTuber, but their channel no longer exists, unfortunately. Wandering around the graveyard, we see this paranormal investigator, Cloud. In the 1930s version of The Invisible Man, Dr. Jack Griffin, aka The Invisible Man, was played by Claude Rains. To the left we have Lugosi Lane, and further beyond that we have Karloff Park. These are in reference to Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. Lugosi was known for playing Count Dracula in the 1931 film, while Boris Karloff was known for playing both Frankenstein and Imhotep in The Mummy. The sparkling vampire is obviously a reference to Twilight, poking fun at the sparkly vampires of that world. Here we'll find James. The other day I had this weird dream that I was alive and played video games for a living. I also frequently visited the Way Sub or something. I don't know, dude. I'm an owl. Hoot hoot. With the iconic look of the parted hair and the purple hoodie with a red hood. And the real name James. This is meant to be Nitro Rad, one of the larger YouTubers to have ever covered the game. He likes to do short highlight type videos where he draws attention to lesser known indie games. Very cool dude, also Canadian. Cool to see him having a little reference in here. Here we have Eric, Chester, Stuart, Pauline Hamilton, and Gregory, all debating the nuances of specific canon in their favorite Horror Rangers TV show. They were originally going to be different enemies that you encountered, all making up the Horror Rangers themselves. This was eventually removed from the game, but since their designs were so popular around the Discord community, they were repurposed as NPCs in Karloff Park, talking about the Horror Rangers TV show. One of the craziest and kind of most on-the-nose references is this little tunnel in the back here. The big hole in the wall when you go in and adventure your way down the path. Is that... Could it be him? It's me, Sam Cave Story. Sam being very similar to Sans, and Cave Story, while also being a slight reference to the actual game Cave Story, is a play off the idea of Undertale, a below-ground story, cave story. He looks almost identical to Sans, except for his absolutely ginormous chin, which is something I never really noticed about Sans' design. The way he has that little shirt collar, it does almost look like he just has a giant chin. And so Sam Cave Story has made me unable to see that. So thank you to the developers for that little treat. I talked to the developer Dustin about this a little bit, and he said Sam likely won't be in the final game. It's just kind of a silly demo gag. It's playing up the fact that people made a lot of comparisons to Undertale because every 2D pixel RPG based game with a narrative is now compared to Undertale. But you know, for the final game's release, you might as well not encourage those comparisons. Paula and Ned are references to Paula and Ness from the Mother series. Dustin has said that he didn't want to directly name the character Ness because that's a little too on the nose. Ness isn't really a real name. So, Ned. It's close enough while still being quite obvious what they were going for. Within the Forgotten Mansion, we frequently see the Pink Fiend running around. The Pink Fiend's design is based on the Oni, the primary antagonist of another RPG Maker game, Owl Oni. Also, as a throwback to that game, you're actually unable to hurt the Pink Fiend. Your only option is to run. This book found in the Forgotten Mansion is open to a tale about the devil goes down to Georgia, the famous song by the Charlie Daniels Band. There are small things in this room that are in reference to Alice's Own. We have this bear in the corner. and on the table, a little hooded doll. You've got the same kind. And when you interact with the creepy statue, for some reason, there's something very familiar about this statue. It makes you feel very uneasy. Nya Beth is a cat-like creature. It's a mix of Nya, the Japanese onomatopoeia version of a cat's meow, and Macbeth. This is another character that results from a Make Your Monster art contest, although this one didn't actually win. Instead, it's made a part of the game through a Creator's Choice Award from Dustin. We have this kind of tease of a garbage can. You check the trash can and... wait, is that? Nope, never mind, it's empty. During the Rube Goldberg type sequence, as we're cascading things down from our rock throw all the way towards the generator being turned off in dramatic fashion, we do get a Wilhelm scream on the way down. Tucked away towards the top of Shiver Street, we have this little trap door. In the suit HQ, we have Dave and Gene with his crazy haircut, brown suit, and conspiracy theories. He bears a resemblance to Giorgio A. Tsoukalos. It's all connected. You know exactly what we're dealing with, right? That's right. Aliens. Aliens are invading the underworld. Dave, with his tinfoil hat, is a little bit more loud and aggressive. He appears to be making fun of Alex Jones. He's kind of stark, raving mad, going off on weird tangents. There's a top secret order in the upper government to put chemicals in the blood we drink. I'm not even kidding. Do you see what I mean? That's how they get you. Everything around us is merely a simulation. We're in a video game, little girl. We're lines of code in a machine. The universe is a lie. So on and so on. Antoinette asks you to go searching for her 10 missing puppets. We can only actually find one puppet in the demo. The full game is when that'll come into play. But on her shelf here, we have two references. Kira from Sand Bandits and Darian from Jonto, two webcomic series that BatWorks lead artist Dustin Andrews works on. Puppet Boyo is an enemy that was designed by Soup Gamer and was Matt's developer choice in the first Make Your Monster art contest. As you can see, after defeating Puppet Boyo, as you come back here, they'll now be hanging out inside Antoinette's room. Thank you for playing with me. Here lies Grumpy Gravestone, an enemy that we fought in the previous graveyard with Claude. Honestly, whose idea was it to give a gravestone a grave? Also, he was just a ghost possessing a gravestone, so why did we bury this? Shiren is the result of another Make Your Monster art contest, winning a Creator's Choice from Matt. A little joke in the battle against the experiment, you don't know what. He punches you, or is it a kick? We're asking the deep questions here. A joke of an item that you can get is the HorrorVale wiki, which clears confusion, which is the same purpose that the real-life HorrorVale wiki serves. It's actually a very active Wikipedia community, and it's just loaded with an insane amount of Easter eggs and details and things like that. The developer Dustin is constantly sharing things in the Discord. It's worth checking out. There's 100 of these bushes all over the place that say nothing important when you interact with them. This one off on this little cliffside with the campfire ghosts. So Alice, how goes your quest to rescue your beloved dog? Well, I'm mostly just spending my time examining bushes. Up on the cliff tops, we fight the mini-boss, Grave Hands, who is a direct reference both in name and design to Dead Hands from Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. An absolutely terrifying enemy, just weirdly creepy even with that limited number of polygons. This is barely a secret when you're first climbing up things just before the entrance to the lab area here. On the left-hand side of the cliff, we have this little trampoline. It's hard to miss, so I hesitate to call it a secret, but we actually have this character hanging out back here in this big puffy robe named Old Goat, but really there is just nothing about this character so far. My guess is that there will be more going on here in the full game. I like him. He looks wise and old and cool. Towards the end of the demo, after you've rescued Bolt, you can actually come back to this area, and instead, we have Cloud hanging out here. He seems focused. It's vacant. Hard to say exactly where he went, but we know we've got the right man on the case. After having met the shopkeeper down below, we meet them up in the hideaway. Well, look who it is. We meet again. Come to browse my wares? There's a fun meta joke here about the trampolines that are all over the map. Apparently they had a lot of trampolines in stock. I realize this should be a pretty easy thing to recreate and show off for you guys, but it's like a 4-hour long demo, and I'm very tired. It's late at night. I don't plan to do it right now. Not in this video, at least. Please forgive me. There's all these different created experiments around here, including Head on a Leg, who is probably the best character in the whole game. We also have this guy who is a hand for a head. Welcome to our little village. Let me know if you need help with anything. It's kind of a subversive thing, like needing a hand with anything. Maybe he's just embarrassed and trying not to draw attention to it. The guard at the top here is Officer Frank. He's been transferred after, quote, being beat up by a little girl. When you reach the HorrorVale lab and climb up the rope, peek your head over at the ventilation system, you peer into the small vent. Wait, is that? It's just a ventilation system. You don't actually see anything. But wait, you get a waft of some kind of weird stonk? You mean stink. I just thought this was a funny little one-off joke. I showed people in the Discord an early preview of what I was working on with this video, and it was pointed out to me that weird stonk is another Hella Jeff reference. On the first floor of the lab, there is this vampire-looking character who reveals himself to be Dr. Rice Curry. A little bit of the design of the character, but mostly the name, is a reference to Tim Curry and their character Dr. Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Taking that a step further even by getting the mayor's name wrong as Frankenfurter. The mayor of the town is Mayor Finkelheim. There's kind of a running joke that no one can get the name correct. Here this ghost in the HorrorVale town center actually does get it right, Finkelheim. Katie calls him Mayor Finkelcrom. Benjamin will call him Mayor Frinkle-Klein. Robbie calls him Frankelfinkel. Timmy calls him Mayor Fankel-Lime. The ghost in HorrorVale Heights says Fankelfurters. Jeffrey in a jar calls him Mayor Finglefoot. And then just a moment later, Old Fangle Show. In the final scene, Raps addresses him as Frangelfurt. Dr. Finkelheim. Finally, the correct name there. He is actually Dr. Ludwig Frankenstein, or Dr. Picklebrine. A textbook detailing incredibly rare disorders that undead can experience. You see bonitis listed. Yikes, makes you cringe thinking about it. A reference to bonitis, a fake disease seen in Futurama. Puzzle Making 101. Wait a minute. On this particular shelf, we get a detailing of the different experiments that the mayor has created. Jeffrey, the guy that we are actively helping to solve the puzzle in this area. We have Sarah, Leonard, skip a few, Jim, Blue, other guys, the police officer, the technician, another technician. We have the mail delivery person who I assume is the one that we've met. And you skip to the most recent page, Experiment 280, Purpose Destruction. This seemed so particular a choice, and when asking Dustin, the developer, about it, he said that it is actually pulled from the page count of the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Here we have Repair Bot, who seems to be kind of like a weird Hank Hill, making jokes about propane accessories. His two assistants are YGOR1 and YGOR2. It's Igor 1 and 2. Now, the footage that I had originally recorded for this little video comes from the old version of the demo. The developers realized that some of this was a little bit outdated. It's the first part of the game that they made. They revisited it all with a fresh coat of paint. So I'm not going to re-show the entire mansion, but I did just want to run around it a little bit and just kind of show off the fresh coat of paint that they've put on things. Even the characters themselves have received a fresh coat of paint. The ghosts are now a little bit more distinct than they had been in the past. I'd never thought that this portion of the game looked like it could use improving, but now seeing it comparatively to the state that the game was originally in, it kind of looks fantastic. I think they did a fantastic job updating things. There's a few greater hints to lore in the game now too. There's this room that has this weird green smudging everywhere, and when you interact with the bed, it used to belong to your older sister before she moved out. which has been revealed through tweets and the Discord and things to be Raven, a plague doctor. Something that I missed earlier as well, this ghost hanging out next to the chest puzzle is Mario. He's even got a little bit of like a red hue, but he doesn't have a distinct ball cap or anything like that. The joke here is that this is a puzzle that's lifted pretty well directly from Mario 64, and so we just have our little Mario hanging out as a relatively subtle reference. So if you decide to give the game a try for yourself, this is the version of the spooky manor that you're going to see, so just so you're aware why things are so distinctly different than they were before. Full credit here belongs to Tanner of the North. The only reason I know about this is from their own video on it. I believe it's somewhere around here. Yes, there's your hint right beside the tipped over garbage can. There's a secret little entrance you can walk through. It takes you to an extra little area here. We have the BatWorks shed, which is the development team behind the game here. Shout out to Tanner for being such a good, diligent secret hunter. I probably would have found this without them finding it first. You can go check out their own playthrough of the game if you're so enticed. To the side here, we have Dustin and Matt, as well as Dustin's cat, Gizmo, two developers of the game, artist and composer, and cat, very important role. Talking to Dustin, I'm thankful Act 1 is finally done. It's way easier to draw rural areas. I'm making a new song right now. It's for a place called the Bone Zone. Got some kind of mask? And if you open up your inventory and key items, you have the balaclava, a black mask, which you can then put on Alice. The name on this cat's collar, it reads Alice. Do you have some kind of connection to this cat? Actually, she's completely ignoring you. They have game design for dummies. The cat's definitely up to something. It always has shifty eyes going on. Soda cans and tea bags. A big tablet. I guess that's where all the budget went. That's what we have for our little peek into the developer's world. Again, credit to Tanner of the North. Once you have the balaclava equipped, you can wear it back to the shop. Oi, that mask. Are you doing what I think you're doing? Is this some kind of joke? Are you stupid? Is that skull full of silly string? You would try to rob me? At which point you activate a secret boss fight, which is super cool. Here in like this deserted desert, things kind of kick off. So you think you can steal from me, I usually try to contain myself, but against a foul thief, there's nothing to hold me back. I'll feast on your bones. It gets pretty intense. She seemed like such a nice girl. There also appears to be a totally unique song to go along with this battle, which is pretty cool. I would also recommend definitely doing this after. I don't even know if you can do it before getting Bolt on your team, but I would not recommend it. It's a pretty difficult battle. Sometimes in the middle of battle, it comes up with this thing. You end up buying some random junk and it costs you 20 gold, and then in your inventory, you have worthless junk. Why did you buy this? If you manage to pull through and complete this crazy difficult battle, easily the hardest battle in the game, well done, well done. It seems I was mistaken. You're no robber, just some weirdo skeleton girl with a bizarre taste in fashion. For your efforts? Well, to be honest, I have nothing to give you. I mean, this isn't even a full game. If I gave you some amazing item, it'd be useless. Instead, oh I know, in this game there's 30 party members to find. The full game, I mean. You might have seen many of them already through advertisements or wiki browsing, however, there's still many yet to show their faces. Let's see. On your journey of patience, waiting for the full release, you'll meet several of them. You'll meet someone harsh and poisonous, someone damp and dreary, sugary and gleeful, bubbly and clumsy. How's that? Hey, don't look at me like that. Beat me again in the full game and I'll give you something cool, yeah? That is the extent of that little secret. I had to borrow Tanner's footage because I couldn't win this fight. It's crazy hard. With that, I've covered everything I can possibly think to include. Every centimeter of this game is packed with a little bit something extra, so it's probably quite easy to overlook things. But I did share this with the Discord group first. They looked through it with me and helped me find some omissions or oversights. And I think with their help, we have a very complete look at Act 1. And hey, if I did forget anything, we can look forward to the full game's release and I can tag it on there. Check out the links I have in the description. I'll link you guys to the Steam page. You can play the free demo for yourself as well as wishlisting the full game. You might consider joining the HorrorVale Discord. It's very active. It's like one of the most active and most fun Discord communities I've seen, so I'd highly recommend that if you're into this game. I'll have a link in the end card if you want to watch the original playthrough I did of everything, as well as a playlist where I do other secrets and Easter eggs videos in the same style as this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.